Do 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 do. Extras.
First off, I have to point out that the timeline of the archaeologists and when they were attacked by orcs and when those orcs were attacked by other orcs, it all got a little muddled. The best I can tell now, the expedition found the item, then traveled for half a week, maybe longer, until they were attacked by the first orcs, the ones from Gruul, less than a day out from Fort Keeling. This is definitely within what is nominally Vistrian territory, but obviously the rocky plains south of the mountains are only lightly patrolled, and for the most part they function as more of a no-man's land between the kingdom and Untor's orcs. So they capture or kill most of the returning expedition, take the artifact, and start to mosey on back south, in absolutely no hurry. Even though the PCs were traveling at least twice as fast, the orcs must have been screwing around or found some kind of monsters or other challenge to fight with. So, within a day of the attack, the survivor is picked up by Vistrian soldiers, and hours later a messenger is sent to New Vaniver, where the PCs were. But based on this timeline, the attack happened several days away from Uruk. This suggests that Hag's band, the second group of orcs coming out of the desert, almost had to have been on their way well before the boys from Gruul got involved. That aside, there was another plot hook in that area of the world which got bypassed, mostly my fault. But there is a real fort with actual masonry walls, known as Dunavar's Spire. Based on the Duke's policy, the soldiers in the field are required to refer to it as Fort something or other, with a name that changes from time to time, which is great information control and all that, except his two enemies are the Diluvians, whose invisible spying gives them an excellent assessment of the human forces and bases at any given time, and orcs, who aren't likely to intercept and decode any written orders. But anyhow, the old fortress everyone else calls Dunavar's Spire was right along the party's route as they hugged the mountains, then turned north when they reached Uruk. That name came up once before, though, on the purchase order carried by those artificers mind-controlled by Beta, the ones delivering 3 clay golems en route to Dunavar's Spire. So it might have been worth looking into Captain Thorpe, the commander of the fortress, who had signed off on the purchase of those golems. Oh well. I had to really edit down this episode script-wise, because the game session was all about travel and atmosphere and the desert, which all doesn't translate very well into a compact, fast-moving story form. And there was a lot of fun aside-type stuff, which didn't tie in together very well, especially if I was trying to speed up the desert part. Among the random things that didn't make the cut, or fit the flow of the episode, was kidding about Mora using her repeated crossbow while improved invisible atop Rainbow Dash, which, from the orcs' point of view, must have looked like they were being magically shot at by the massive 6-legged horse somehow, or perhaps like Rainbow Dash was spitting nails at them. Then there was the time the hero spotted a herd of camels. How much XP is a camel? 0, since they're no threat to you.
But that means we could farm them easily. 0 XP isn't much, but multiplied by infinity? And how much water do we have? Infinity.
Now, to help with the sense of scale and the alien landscape of the Uruk Desert, I prepped a few clips from the Deserts episode of David Attenborough's Planet Earth, which is an excellent series that they basically just recut with some extra footage to make Disney's Earth. There's some really epic footage of the world we live in, and some of the desert mountain ranges, the incomprehensible large, slow-moving waves that are sand dunes, and the crazy wind-carved pillars of stone. Some of this footage would look very familiar if you've seen this TDDC episode. As they traveled outwards, looking for Courage, with the massive mountains of Dragor looming on their left, there was a region full of huge rocks which the winds had cut into almost the shape of the knobs in Bumperpool. Whatever the hell Bumperpool is, but I have a mental picture of it, and that's kind of what these rocks were, only on a massive scale. Afterwards, when they set out from the once-hidden entrance of Courage, trying to retrace the steps of the archaeologists, aided massively by Mora's Lay of the Land spell, they were soon back into the area of these sporadic stone giants, like metaphorical stone giants, the way they describe things in a nature documentary. If there had been actual stone giants walking around with clubs, I'm pretty sure it would have made the episode. Anyway, these big bumper stones were spread out, hundreds or thousands of meters apart, but as they started using divinations, they ended up choosing from among several different things Mora noticed on her spell's mental map, which sounded like they might have matched up with a landmark from the spotty memories Angel had read from the survivor. They tried to use augury to determine whether to go deeper into the desert or keep heading back through the rocks, staying within a day or two of the mountains. Of course, the augury gives such fuzzy information it was like, wheel and woe, and then they killed Mr. Scorpion and cast it again and it was like, wheel! And then we finished for the night, came back next week and I was like, actually, it should still have said wheel and woe, because nothing's ever easy. Little One's new spear isn't terribly exciting. It just has the ability to change sizes so that he can use it one-handed, two-handed, or two-handed with reach, as the situation demands. But his plan was to get enough gold saved up to have Draven upgrade it into a brilliant energy weapon. That's a +3 equivalent property that causes the weapon to completely ignore all non-living material, like armor. Now, it has the drawback that this expensive weapon literally cannot harm undead or golems, but it can pass right through cover, even total cover, though you'd still have a hard time hitting something you can't see. But when the gargantuan scorpion dove underground, he was like, I just realized, if I had my brilliant energy spear, with returning, I could throw it straight down into the ground, and this thing's so big, it'd have to hit something. Man, that weapon is broken. The scorpion, who I like to call Mr. Scorpion, was kind of partway between the stats of a gargantuan and a colossal scorpion. The party is powerful enough that even with my size-based damage reduction rules, they would have stomped a standard gargantuan one a little too easily. I needed the stats from a colossal one, but there were a couple issues. One, it would go from a pretty good chance to hit to only missing on a 1, even with them fully buffed. And two, the poison is supposed to be DC 28, dealing 2d8 strength damage, an amount which could knock Angel unconscious with one good roll, or take Black or Little One effectively out of the fight. True, this is less bad than in 3.0 edition, when the poison save formula was based 100% on hit dice, resulting in a difficulty of 54 on Colossal Scorpion Poison. But even with the 3.5 version, I felt there was a high likeliness that it would have defeated the party in a fashion which would feel unfair and anticlimactic, since it's basically a random encounter. And also, if they did win, I didn't especially want Angel running around with DC 28 2d8 strength poison, obliterating fights that ought to be more interesting than this one. The thing that I screwed up, and largely glossed over in the video, is that I had written in my notes that it should dive when bloodied. And so, when they bloodied it, it interrupted the initiative order and dived. And I realized a round or two later, that was a really stupid defense, which actually made the fight easier because it happened just before Mr. Scorpion's turn, causing it to miss a round of attacks, while the party got to sit on their ass and heal and buff for a round. What it should have done was, once bloodied, it should have dived under the sand at the end of its next turn, after attacking, then resurface at the start of the next turn, causing confusion and actually sparing it from a round of attacks unless they all readied their actions. Then it could re-emerge, land on them like a breaching whale, and carry on from there. Instead, I just stupidly made the fight easier, and if I was going to do that, I should have just given it the full colossal stats. Oh well. I'm sorry the episodes seem to be taking longer, although at least they're big, decent-looking episodes. It takes me longer to make a script for my audio notes than the old way. There's so much to cut down and filter out, and it takes hours just to listen through it in real time. But the plus side is, I can include more of the best funny lines from the actual players, sometimes paraphrased, often verbatim. Anyway, thanks for your patience, and I'm doing my best to keep them coming. If you want to support Tales from my D&D campaign, despite how slow I am, consider making a pledge at patreon.com/Demonac. It's my awesome patrons that allow me to afford stuff like the much better video editing software I used for this episode. Every one of your contributions is appreciated, but if you donate even $1 per month, you can download the TDDC Vampire King theme and Orc theme MP3s just as a little thank you. Of course, one of the best and cheapest ways you can help out is simply to share TDDC, Mini Tales, or Anime Indecision with any friends, anybody who you think might enjoy them. And don't forget to like these videos.